Welcome back to another episode of KSP 101. We are now at episode 18. As always, we now have a new contract where we accomplished our Eve flyby by making it to Eve. We now have a contract for Orbit Eve, go on an orbital spacewalk near Eve, and return to Kerbin from orbit of Eve. Now, in order to do all of this, let's go back where we were by heading to our tracking station. And while we are in the tracking station, let's also go ahead and clear up some of the debris that we have left on our way to Eve. Going down here, we have some at the Mun launch site that we can recover. Now that we are also making some Mun launches, every time we do a launch, we are going to have to recover anything that we leave at the launch site, which is usually the launch stability enhancers after they are decoupled from launch. And after we recover those, we will go ahead and terminate the 4 outer fuel stages that we use to launch and begin our trajectory burn towards Eve, as well as our correction burn that we did in a core level cross fashion. Once we have all of those terminated, we will go to our CRS-3 relay and return vessel. As you can see, we are still a couple days away from Eve, so let's go ahead and return to that vessel. And once we get here, we are going to do a quick save and begin to lower our periapsis down into Eve's atmosphere. I'm not going to lower it down too much. The atmosphere begins at 90,000, which we covered a few times so far. So we're going to try to lower it down to about maybe 80,000, which will hopefully be safe, hopefully allowing for it to make it through the atmosphere without burning up or losing or destroying any of these parts. Now, to do this, and to also help assisting in burning off some of our speed, instead of doing a radial in burn, we are going to do a retro burn. Now our thrust limiter is still pretty low, so we don't have to mess with that too much. Okay, it looks like we are going to have to raise it up just a little bit. You can see that purple nightmare just looming there in the distance, waiting for us to attempt to burn through its atmosphere. Let's raise our thrust limiter up to about 32 should be fine. We'll take that. We'll go back to our map view, re-highlight our periapsis, and begin to move it down till it hits about close to 80,000. If we put it at about, say maybe 82,000, by the time we exit the atmosphere, it should be close to 80,000. Hopefully it doesn't burn off too much, but we'll find out. We are swiftly approaching that 80,000 meter mark. We don't want to take it too much lower than that though. Alright, let's slowly begin to decrease it now that we have entered the atmospheric limit. The top of the atmosphere at least, rather. Alright, moving it on down to about 82,000 or so. That should give us plenty of time to get our crew report, do our science, which there's only technically three types of science we're going to do, which is the temperature reading, the barometric reading, and the mystery goo. But then we also need to grab a crew report as well as an EVA report. The EVA report is the biggest one. As long as we get the EVA report, we'll do an EVA in the atmosphere of Eve as well as gain science from the upper atmosphere of Eve, and that's good. That's what we're going to knock out first. And once we get close to Eve, we're going to have a Kerbal go EVA and grab onto that command pod, holding on for dear life as it enters the atmosphere. And the moment it touches that atmosphere, we're going to grab that EVA report, hopefully not losing the Kerbal, and then get back in the pod and grab the rest of our science, or at least any of it that we can get a hold of. Now, we have our periapsis where it needs to be. Let's go ahead and try to time warp a little closer. But before we do that, actually, we need to grab some science from the space high above Eve. Let's go ahead and do that by grabbing first our gravity data. There's 100 science. Let's grab our barometric data. There's probably 60. Yep. And our temperature log, which should be close to the same, maybe less with the barometric. Okay, 40. And we'll grab our crew report. And then after we grab this crew report, let's grab our mystery goo. Now that we have all that, let's EVA our good friend Bob. And hopefully we'll be able to grab all the science without having to move around too much. We might have to do a little floating around to get to that barometric reading. Looks like we are going to have to, so let's take the gravity data, let's take the temperature log, let's also take our crew report so we can free up some space for another one. We will collect the data from the mystery goo and then reset the mystery goo. And let's also go ahead and highlight the barometric reader and then hit X to let go. Hold the left shoulder button or L1, then hit circle or B on the Xbox to activate our RCS and very gently boost up and then boost back down with the left trigger to correct that speed. Boost forward with up on the stick, and then once we are close enough, we will begin to boost down towards our barometric pressure reader. Try to get ourselves at a nice controllable speed relative to that. Take that data. Let's put all that data back in our command pod and then make our way back into the command pod, while trying to avoid bumping into the vessel too much because it will affect our periapsis, which we had just delicately set where it needed to be. Looking good still. Let's go ahead and do a quick save and then try to get into a better position to get the science data from the space around Eve. We'll put our focus on Eve for this. Try to find a spot near it that's not too close to that periapsis so we have plenty of time to do this, and then we will warp ahead. Getting a good view of Eve here as we move closer to it. Beautiful shot there. But we are on a time limit now. See, we're not quite in the space near Eve yet, so let's go ahead and time warp until we're about, I want to say 500,000 meters away should do. Let's check our periapsis, see how much time we have to do this. We have 4 minutes to do this. Now let's make absolutely certain that we are in the space near Eve by checking our temperature. We're still high over. Alright, so that's very quickly coming down. Once it hits about 400,000 and starts to dip below 400,000, we're going to check it again. Go on ahead and open that to get it ready. We are now below 400,000. We are in the space near Eve, so now time is our enemy. Let's try to get this as quickly as possible. We have the temperature log. We now have the gravity log. Let's get our barometric reader and get our pressure log. Let's get our crew reports. And we need to get that mystery goo once again. Pretty much everything that we just did in the space high above Eve. Ugh. Pressure is on and I am losing focus. We need to get this done before we hit 100,000 meters above Eve. Let's go ahead and EVA. Now we might actually be starting to feel the effects of the gravity for all we know, but let's hurry up and get this done. Let's let go, activate our RCS. Ooh, wow. Pushed us off a good bit there, didn't it? Oh. Okay, since we are so close, the gravity is making this a little more difficult, but we will prevail. Let's very quickly hurry up and grab that, and then get back up to our command pod and grab it. Come on, Bob, you got this. Come on, Bob. Grab it. Okay, now let's get this data. And keep an eye on Bob and make sure he doesn't go floating off the vessel. That would be a worst case scenario right now. Okay, we have the temperature log. Let's collect this mystery goo. And let's reset the mystery goo. Go over here and grab the gravity data. And then grab our crew report out of the command pod. And then get back in that command pod, which we need to lower ourselves. There we go. Now, let's reactivate our SAS lock on retro. And we have plenty of power right now. We don't have to worry about the power, and we don't want to lose these solar panels. We still have about 60,000 meters to go or so, so very quickly. And right now our focus is retracting these solar panels so they don't burn up in the atmosphere. Once we have all of those retracted, let's keep an eye on our altitude. We are waiting for it to hit about 100,000 meters. It's a little dark, so it's going to be a little hard to see in this video. I apologize for that in advance. Now that all those are closed and we are quick save, we are waiting for that to hit 100,000 meters. We can go ahead and EVA our good friend Bob. Let's turn his lights on so we can keep an eye on where he is. Now, something very critical to remember right now is to hold the left shoulder button so Bob is grabbing our command pod. Now you can't do anything else except shimmy a little bit and zoom in and out while that's happening. Now, while we're in EVA, let's get our menu up and prepare to grab that EVA report, and then hit the stick in to get rid of the mouse, and hold on tight to that vessel. In fact, move up a little bit, but not too much, because you don't want the Kerbal to burn. As soon as it hits 90,000, we will hit the stick in, grab our EVA report. There's our upper atmosphere, starting to burn. Get in there real quick before you burn up. And then while we're in this upper atmosphere, stay locked on to retro. Hopefully we do not lose anything from the burns. Let's also turn our thrust limiter back up. We may be dipping in too far into the atmosphere and we might have to reload, but we'll find out. It's going to be a little difficult to do our science. It's going to be difficult to see anything. So let's aim our camera up towards our command pod, or as close to it as possible. It's barely reducing our speed. That's a good sign. We should still be able to escape the atmosphere. And this will lower our orbital velocity a good bit. We're starting to raise back up now. It is safe. It's time to grab as much science as possible before we escape the atmosphere. Let's get this. Let's get our crew report. Anything that we don't get, we can get in the future. Okay, so it's looking like that's all we're going to be able to get. We need to make sure to get a temperature log, a barometric reading, and a gravity reading the next time we come here. Now that we have that, let's get Bob out here to grab our crew report out of our command pod and grab that mystery goo data and then restore the mystery goo and then get back in that vessel so that we can begin our orbital burn very quickly. Lock back on to retrograde, and again make sure your engine is back up to full throttle, and then start to slowly increase your speed and burn until you have your orbit. And once we begin to have our orbit, our apoapsis will show up. We're going to burn that down until it's between Eve and Gilly. Thanks to our nice thrust to weight ratio, it's burning pretty good. It's going to stop right about there. Then we're going to warp over to our apoapsis. And on our way over there, actually before we do that, we need to redeploy those solar panels. So let's go back up here, set our camera to aim at the relay, zoom back in, and highlight all of our panels here and then extend them. That way we do not lose power. And it's looking like all those dishes are connected enough to be able to have a direct connection back to Kerbin. That's good. Doesn't look like we have a connection to Eve, but not Eve, but the Duno. Okay, we do. So now we have a triangulation between Eve, Duno, and Kerbin. That's good. Hopefully it stays that way once we decouple and, or undock and decouple, deploying that relay. Alright, so now let's warp on over to our apoapsis just a little behind it, making sure to lock prograde along the way. That way once we get there, it's already pointing relatively close to prograde, and it won't take long to reorient the vessel to lock on fully to prograde. Once we get there, let it lock onto prograde. Let's check our resources, make sure we're not losing power too much. Very good. Highlight our apoapsis as well so we can keep an eye on it. Once we are locked prograde, we're going to burn to where we are about a minute away from the apoapsis. Right about now. It's not deviating too far from the prograde mark. That's good. It's not going to take too long to shift on back over to that. Let's go on ahead and move it over to about halfway forward to our apoapsis again. Okay, good. Now once it hits about 10 seconds or so, actually we need to play this a little more wisely. Once it hits 15 seconds, I'm going to slowly throttle up on the prograde, keeping an eye on that G-force meter or listening for that stage to finish burning the rest of its fuel. Once it hits about 650 meters per second, we will be out of fuel for that stage. I'm trying to bring that up to about 8.5 million meters. Let's go ahead and stage, and then activate that mainsail stage. Looking good. That has a much higher thrust to weight ratio here in the vacuum versus the mass on this vessel, so it should move up pretty quickly. We should already be past our apoapsis, and we are. That's okay. We're just trying to get that out to that 8.4 million meter mark, and then we'll cut the engine once it wraps around. Now we have our orbit. This is the time in which we would want to deploy this relay, but we also want to make sure it has enough fuel to hopefully go polar, which it should at this distance from Eve. It's a nice distance away from Gilly as well. Should not be at risk of reaching Gilly's sphere of influence, so it should not be a threat. So let's go ahead and try that out. Let's unlock our SES, then relock it so we're not locked on the prograde. And then we will go ahead and manually decouple this Clampetron docking port node. And once we do that, let's go back to our main vessel and deploy its solar panels now that they are no longer being strutted. Once we have those deployed, they're pointing north and south, so we are getting maximum solar exposure. Let's swap back over to this. Actually, let's swap back again over to this and activate its RCS and go to docking mode. And then use the left trigger to very slowly, gently, slightly boost away from that and let it do its thing. We'll swap back to it, go back to staging mode. And before we stage, we need to make sure that we're pointing away from the vessel. We'll point that stage in towards Eve with a radial outlock. I think it'll be safe to go ahead and lock. Let's go ahead and make sure our throttle's down and stage. So that gets kicked off. Very good. It's on its way away from us, and we are on our way away from our return vessel. Let's activate our engine, get a little further away, only using a little bit of the fuel, and we will point normal. Now that we are clear of the vessel, we don't have to worry about auto-locking, and then we will begin our normal burn. Make sure not to burn back on that vessel too much. Once we're far enough away, let's reactivate it. We're just going to let that do its thing until the vessel is pointing horizontally on the planetary orbit axis. Hopefully having enough fuel to push against the massive gravitational hold that Eve has on us right now to be able to get this thing polar. And it will be in a perfect orbit for a relay network. we'll know if we're going to have enough fuel once it hits that 315 mark, if it has about half of its fuel left. We're going full throttle so we can maximize the efficiency of this burn. I believe it will have enough, but we'll find out. If it doesn't, we can reload, do about a quarter burn on the normal, and then eject it and let it finish itself off, and then correct with an anti-normal burn for a return vessel. But I don't believe we'll have to do that. As long as we stop this thing in time at 270 and not waste any fuel, it should be pretty perfect. So we're about a quarter away. We have just a hair above quarter fuel. So we might have maybe 100 meters per second or less remaining by the time we hit that 270 mark. Just keeping an eye down there on our nav ball, the HDG, our orbital inclination, degree of inclination. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Alright, let's check our orbit. Looks like a pretty solid polar orbit to me. So now that we have that, let's save. And now we have our first mass relay in polar orbit of Eve. And it's in a good spot too, because where it's this way and not this way, it won't get anywhere near Gilly. So it's safe. Now I wonder where, there's our return vessel, I believe, making its way past us. In order to switch back to it though, we're going to have to go to map view, and then we're going to have to find it. Well, there's some debris that's close to it. We'll just switch to that instead. And once we switch to it, we should be close enough, that debris should be close enough to be able to just hold L1 with the left shoulder button and D-pad left or right to be able to swap back over to our return vessel. We could try to take another pass into the atmosphere if we want to finish off the rest of the science while we're at it. But that would be a little bit of a waste of fuel. Not too much of a waste of fuel, but in fact we are kind of wanting to do some orbital adjustments. I don't know. We might just want to play it safe. Alright, we have swapped successfully over to this. We have gathered all the science that we can get for now, unless we dip back over into the atmosphere, but we still need to go on an orbital spacewalk near Eve. So let's hop let's see, Bob. Let's hop Bob out, complete that, and then get back in the vessel. Now we just need to make it home from Eve. And we have tons of Delta V to do that. So, you know what? Let's go for it. Let's try to dip into the atmosphere one more time and grab the 3 remaining bits of science that we need to maximize our mission efficiency. Entered orbit of Eve, performed a spacewalk in orbit of Eve. We should have already had it for entering the upper atmosphere, because we did grab the science from the upper atmosphere. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but we're going to do it again, so it doesn't matter. Anyways, let's point our panels north and south, and we're going to try to make this happen on the day side of Eve so we can see it this time, shall we? So let's warp over to this side of Eve, pointing retrograde once we get there. That way we can bring this side in closer, and we will begin to enter the atmosphere as it turns to the day side. Just need to make sure that we are lined up properly where we need to be to do that. Looks like we're still a little behind. Let's go ahead and warp ahead a little bit. So if you line it up to where you can see the dark and the light side evenly distributing their light and darkness on the planet, your vessel should be directly behind that central point. It can be a little further, that's okay, but never behind, or you're still going to be burning into the dark side if you're trying to get some light in your view. In fact, I'm going to take it just ahead a little bit more which should bring it down to about where this ocean is whenever we start burning. Let's highlight those, wait for it to finish its time warp. Once it does, I'm going to quick save to save our progress in case anything happens. Never know when the feed might get cut, the Kraken might strike. Oh man. Need to regain my bearing. Okay. Got the quick save, let's wait for it to go to retrograde. And we'll start our burn. So we still have the main cell stage as well as the skipper stage, then the wolfhound. We're going to try to not use too much because we might still need that skipper stage as well as the wolfhound stage to make it back. It's been a while since I've done this. But let's go ahead and put that periapsis down. We barely had any time last time, but we were at a greater altitude on our apoapsis last time too. We barely had any time to EVA and grab the mystery goo and the crew report, the EVA report. I'm not even sure we got a crew report last time either, but should be enough time to grab everything if we do it again. At 82,000. Ooh, whoa, we've passed well beyond that, but hey, that got us to get our suborbital space flight above Eve. That's good, right? Let's try to correct that real quick. Once we are pointing prograde, in fact, we'll take advantage of this situation, lowering our thrust limiter to 6, highlighting the apoapsis, and then increasing it until it's at about 82,000 again. I don't think we'll be burning through the atmosphere for too long. Not long enough for it to like grip us down to the surface. So let's save there. And then time warp around to where we are getting close to that periapsis. Say about here, which will put us about 5 minutes away from the periapsis. We also need to make sure to highlight our panels so we can close them and not lose them. Once we are there, very quickly retract those once we are done pointing retrograde. That way we can keep our energy flow, keeping us topped off on our energy. And once we are pointing retro, then we will retract the solar panels, conserving our power. Never know, just in case anything goes wrong. Alright, let's go ahead and retract those. Alright, let's retract one for now. Rotate the other one to where it's getting maximum solar exposure. Say pointing 270 north. Let's go ahead and quick save again. We can always correct that from 368,000 meters if we need to. Let's time warp ahead, highlight this, and we will cancel the time warp at about 100,000 meters. Let it reorient itself and close the solar panel after it's done reorienting itself. And 3, 2, 1, 0. Once it's done, it should be at about 100,000 meters by then, and we will retract that solar panel right about now, and we will EVA Bob after we rotate this to where we can make sure that we are going to see Bob pointing away from the atmosphere. Actually, we don't even need Bob out there. Get him back in real quick and prepare to get the crew report. As soon as we hit 90,000, we will grab the crew report. Alright, there's the upper atmosphere there. Let's grab our science data now. There's the gravity. It's the most important. Okay, we can't grab that. Next up is the barometric reading. It's our next important. And then our temperature reading. It's our least important. And you know what, just for the heck of it, since we can technically get some extra science out of it if we'll get it twice, let's grab another mystery goo observation, which we will keep. We will not take that data. or else we won't get a second serving of it. And let's just make our way through the atmosphere. We're not really burning much, thank God. We are on our way back out. Let's see how much that's affecting our apoapsis. Remember, it was about 8.4, 8.5. It's reducing the speed fairly well, but we're almost back out of the atmosphere. Got about 5,000 meters to go. It'll probably burn off about another 2,000 meters or so, I would say. Okay, so it's going to burn about 4,000. In total, I think we probably burnt off about 10,000 meters. The fact that it's still reducing it above 90 is a little telling. Really makes me wonder. See, once it hits 100,000 meters, we'll see if it's affecting it still. But it most certainly should not. Okay, very good. So, it looks like even if you're not in the atmosphere at 90,000, if you're within 100,000 meters, so we have to remember that for future episodes. We don't want to be any lower than 100,000, or it's going to grab us and eat us for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Alright, so we are done here. Let's point retrograde, and then re-extend our solar panels. And as those are extending, we'll get Bob to hop out there and grab everything but that mystery goo. So we'll need Bob to hop out and grab the crew report, as well as the temperature log, and then a quick little backpack excursion over to the barometric pressure reading to grab it very gently, since we're still so close to Eve and it can still grab us and have its way with us. Let's take that barometric reading, hop on back over here and get back in our pod. Looks like we already had that crew report, I guess, if I had to guess which one it is that we already had. And we will time warp over to our apoapsis. Actually, no. Let's try to get this as tight of an orbit as possible. There's our atmospheric flight. Okay, it's a good thing we went back around for that. Let's try to get this orbit as tight as possible while we can. Let's burn our apoapsis down. We'll worry about the periapsis once we're done. Let's highlight our engine. Go full throttle. We'll burn this down to about 200,000 meters. It's not necessary, but it'll make for a tighter transfer, which isn't really going to save us a whole lot. I just like to do it. Say by the time we are out of fuel on this stage, it'll be fairly close to 1 million meters, or 1 million meter, 1,000 kilometer. Pretty close. Let's go ahead and stage. And boost away from that just a little bit. It's a beautiful view. Let's activate our engine, keeping an eye on that apoapsis. Now, in fact, I'm not going to take it down to 200,000 meters. I'll probably just take it down to about 700,000. Maybe not even that, because we need to keep an eye on that fuel. It's going to take a lot to get back. It's about as close as I'm going to be able to take it, because once we reach the apoapsis, we still have to burn prograde, so we don't land on Eve. Again, you don't have to do this. You could just wrap back around to the 4 or 5 million mark and push the periapsis back out of the atmosphere. I'm just doing it because I want to, and because we should be able to. Hopefully not compromising the mission though. As you can see, it's taking so much more delta V and so much more thrust to be able to do anything around Eve compared to Duna or Kerbin. But we should have plenty of fuel to finish making this orbit nice and smooth at 757,000 meters. Barely pushing it, barely getting there though. It is so rough here at Eve. once it starts to wrap around, we should be close to being out of fuel in this stage and wrapping around there. We'll just go ahead and let it finish. Maybe. Yeah, just let it go and finish. It's not going to hurt anything. And we'll get rid of that stage. Boost away from it just a hair. Now we just need to set ourselves up for a return trajectory with this Wolfhound stage. Should have plenty of fuel to make it home. Let's go ahead and quick save, but we'll do a second quick save in case we did use up too much fuel. Now let's head to our tracking station. And even if we don't want to use that quick save, we can just send a rescue vessel out to dock up, refuel it, and become another new mass relay. Since we only have one, and it is currently in a polar orbit of Eve, we are going to want to put one of those mass relays that we launched in the polar orbit of Eve in a polar orbit of Kerbin too. Maybe even Duna, but I think we're going to skip launching one to Duna. Let's get rid of some of this debris now. And after we get rid of that, we need to reclassify that CRS-3 that's above our CRS-3 ship into a relay by clicking on it, going to info, and then double clicking on its name, hitting the left stick in to get rid of the mouse, and hitting triangle over until it lands on relay, and then hitting X or A on the Xbox, left stick in, mouse, get rid of the info, and go back down to our ship. No debris, just the ship and the relay. Looking good. Alright, now we need to get our launch window back to how it was when we went to Eve. So we're just going to let Eve wrap on back around the Sol, or not Sol, but Kerbal, the star. This will give us a chance to check out our communication network strength with just that one mass relay. I call it a mass relay because it has 5 of the biggest, most massive relay dishes, and because there are 5 of them, we won't really build a relay any stronger than that. We shouldn't need any stronger than that. One in a polar orbit around each planet is strong enough for any network configuration on normal, maybe even moderate, probably not on hard though. And now that we have a line from Kerbin to Eve, we can get this a lot more accurately, a lot more easily. So once Eve is at the edge, and that line is at the edge of Eve's orbit pointing directly at Kerbin, we will cut our time warp there, and then make our minor adjustments on our transfer window and prepare to come home. And we'll see what we have in store for us next on our contracts with the beastly world of Eve, the system, Eve's system. Probably about time to do a flyby of Gilly, which we might be able to grab on the way out. Once those lines start to line up right on top of Eve's line, about there, we will cut that and then zoom in on Eve with Kerbin in front of us. We have a ways to go there still. Let's activate the time warp and bring that in a little further to about there. That's pretty good. Let's close our time warp and go back to our ship. Would be kind of cool to hit a flyby of Gilly on our way out, though that would affect our trajectory a little bit. We should have maybe tried to have gotten one of those while we were here with the extra Delta V, but we did have to take another dip back into the atmosphere, so it's understandable why we weren't able to do that this time. We'll definitely hit it next time. It's probably what it's going to call for anyways. And if it does, to be honest, we'll just go ahead and land on Gilly and return from the surface as well as the flyby and orbit of Gilly. For now, let's point prograde and go on ahead and set Kerbin as our target. and then zoom back in. Looks like we are approaching where we need to be for this, actually. And we're almost in line with it too. In fact, I'm gonna burn anti-normal. Let's see, we're at 178. We need to burn until that's at 180. Is that raising us? I think it is. Let's find out for sure then. It's bringing us down. Okay, once that's at 180, I'm going to cut the engine and then point back prograde. Now we're more in line with that 90-degree inclination for exit burn. It'll be a lot better for making it back home. So let's go on ahead and time warp ahead until that target mark starts to touch that prograde mark about halfway in. And then line our solar panels up north and south for maximum solar exposure and throttle up nice and slow. And here we go. Oh, it didn't know it. Alright, it's going to be a little off, but we'll correct it. We're just waiting to leave the Eve system now, and it's going to be quite the wait because if Gilly is any indicator, we're going to have to push beyond 50,000 meters just to leave the sphere of influence. And then from there it's a clear burn home, a lot easier. But we have the Wolfhound with 3.5 tons of mass on the vessels for maximum fuel efficiency. So we have plenty of delta V. Hopefully. We are using the Wolfhound though. It's a great vacuum engine. It's a workhorse, good for planet hopping. So is the Cheetah, what we used for the polar burn and that relatively close orbit of Eve with the relay there. We've already used about over half the delta V required to leave the Eve system. So at about half a tank, we're going to be well on our way home. We're going to see that pop out here in just a moment. Eve is gripping us. It's not wanting to let us leave, but we're leaving very slowly, making our way to Kerbin. Once that apoapsis hits the, what was it, about 14 million or so? That's awfully close. Wonder why we haven't got our encounter yet. That's off 2 degrees. That's probably why. Okay, so let's go ahead and save. And then once we have our quick save done, let's go back in and look at something. Where is Gilly? Yeah, it's a little ways off. We're not going to be able to make a flyby of Gilly happen. Alright, so let's time warp ahead just a little bit, see how much it affects our sun apoapsis. Not much at all. Very good. Alright, then we will try to time warp to as close to on top of that descending node as possible. And along the way, set ourselves to normal, so that we can correct that once we get there. We are closer to curb bowl of the star, so this will take a little more delta V. But we just passed it a little bit, that's okay. Still close enough on such a huge orbit. We'll begin correcting that down to as close to 1 as possible, watching for that encounter to happen. Let's exit our time warp mode and go back to our vessel, keeping an eye on our delta V. We're looking good. Not even a half a tank, but getting close. That is also getting close to 0. Let's zoom out. There is our encounter. Once it's at 0 or close to, waiting for that ascent node to wrap around to be close to the approach node. As close as we're probably going to be able to get it. Now let's try burning prograde and see if that brings us in a little closer. Nice and easy at first to see what it's going to do. Okay, so we need to be pointing retrograde. Let that reorient itself. And once we are pointing retrograde, we will begin to burn and bring in that approach until we get our encounter. And about 3, 2, 1, encounter. Let's focus on curving anywhere on its line. Zoom in. Oh yeah, nice degree of inclination. Let's bring that in nice and close. Try to avoid hitting any of these moons if possible. And again, we want to come in on the 90-degree side, so let's let it wrap around and then cut the engine. Let's see how close we are. And then we'll point prograde, highlight our engine, put the thrust limiter down as close to 0 as possible. 0.22, fantastic. Okay, let's highlight that periapse, bring it on down. Coming from Eve is about like coming back from Duna. We're gonna be coming in pretty hot, but we'll bring it down to about 40,000. That'll work. Save the game. And we are not projected to hit any moon, but as always, let's be careful. Time warp ahead just a smidgen. Took about 4 meters off. Not bad. Let's time warp until we're close to Minimus. And we're just waiting to come home now, which it's a lot faster going to and coming home from Eve for some reason. Not quite sure. Because I think our speed increases on our way to Eve and decreases on our way to Duna, if I'm not mistaken. Where the apoapsis and periapsis are shifted, I think. Someone may have to confirm that though. After all, I'm not a rocket scientist, am I? Okay, so we're gonna miss Minimus. Let's go ahead and time warp close to the Mun, make sure we're gonna miss it. Alright, now it's just a matter of getting ourselves nice and close to that periapsis, but not too close. Because we want to close our panels before we start burning through the atmosphere at home. Alright, 170,000 meters away. Let's point retrograde, set it to surface. Once we are reoriented, let's rotate to where our command pod is facing north. Let's retract these. Once all that's done, let's get our thrust limiter back up to full. And let's do a quick save, just in case we do something ridiculous. We're coming in on the day side for once, coming home from another world. That's fantastic. You can actually see this for once. Once we hit about 90,000 or so, we will begin our burn to try to reduce the speed as well as possible. Try to get rid of some of this before we make our re-entry. As long as it's below 3,000, we'll be okay. Doesn't even have to really be that low. As long as you get rid of this tank, it'll be okay. So our periapsis is going down. Our apoapsis is already coming home. Alright, we are in the upper atmosphere. We're waiting to see that burn. I doubt we're going to be able to use all this fuel, but that's okay. Start to burn, we will decouple, activate our RCS, go to docking mode, move away from its plane of ascent and descent. Okay, let's cut that, decouple, go to docking mode, activate the RCS, and move out of the way, just in case it decides to come back at us. Deactivate the RCS, go back to staging mode, and prepare to activate the drogue chutes once we burn through the upper atmosphere. Looks like we might be landing on dirt. Guess we'll find out. Let's time warp. Should be safe enough. It's just a command pod, shouldn't lose control. Let's check that ablator out though, make sure we're not losing too much of our ablative protection. Can't imagine what that would look like on Eve. Oh, where's that burning up and exploding? Guess it was behind us a little bit there. Alright, let's deactivate that time warp. Get rid of that ablative menu. Okay, we're gonna splash down. Even better. I prefer splashing down myself. But landing on land, we could have maybe found some more signs that we didn't have. Okay, let's check that mystery goo, make sure we still have that. Make sure it didn't burn up. good. That's 60 more science. It's going to be reduced probably down to about 25 though, where we also have some of that mystery goo science in our command pod. Now let's time warp. It's still dropping speed. It's still safe to deploy the drogues. We're okay. I'm just trying to save time here. Once we're at about 2,500 meters, I will cut the time warp and activate the drogues. Time warp again down to about, say, 500 meters. And then definitely want to activate those main chutes by then. So there's still time for those to fully deploy. And we'll time warp ourselves down to the splashdown at about 10 meters per second. I think that'll be okay. Just going to keep the time warping going until about there, and then let it do its thing nice and slow. And we're home. We have successfully returned from a flyby of Eve and orbit of Eve, completing our contract, gaining about 100,000 from that, as well as a few 100,000 from that part of the contract, and close to a couple 100,000 from that part of the contract. We are now up to 6.3 billion in funding, and let's collect our vessel and see how much science we get from this. And Jebediah should level up. I'm not sure if Valentina or our scientist friend will, but we'll find out. Then we can also find out what our next mission is going to be. I believe I'm going to have time to be able to record 2 more episodes today, maybe 3 more. I'm going to be doing a lot today, but I have a lot to do here at home on my day off too. I have to do some cleaning. Let's see what we have. Should be loaded up here in just a moment. Okay. We gained 991 science on top of the science from the contracts and accomplishments. We got the additional 13.8 science here on top of the 60 science here for the upper atmosphere mystery goo observations. It did knock it down to 13.8, but still, may as well while we were there, right? So let's take that. Landed quite a ways away from the KSC, not too much in funding returned, but that's okay. And Jebediah is now level 3, good. Valentina and Bob did not advance in level, but they did gain some experience. That's also good. Quite the total reputation going on there. Anyways, that completes that. Let's go to our mission control, check out our contracts, splash down into the oceans of Eve. Oh boy. It's not asking for us to return though, so we're going to send a probe and get some science from the oceans of Eve once we land there in the next episode. See what else we have. Let's see, for 5 Kerbals and orbital station, we have 42 years to do it. I think we might take that because we are going to have to dock and transfer between 2 vessels around both Gilly and Eve. It's only calling for 5 Kerbals and space on the station. The rest is very simple, so we'll take that. We're going to have to do that at some point eventually. It will get us a little bit of an advance and a lot upon completion. A little bit of science too. Alright, let's see what else we have. The new orbital station around Jewel. I can't wait to go to Jewel. It's one of my favorite systems to explore. So many awesome moons. Conduct temperature surveys of Gilly. That's at multiple different biomes. We're not going to bother with that just yet. So, in our upcoming episodes, we will have an orbital station around Gilly, as well as landing in the oceans of Eve. That's what we're going to do next. We're going to send a probe to Eve. We may go ahead and build it to finish this episode off. See, splash down in the oceans of Eve. Okay, let's start working on that now. Let's go to our science tech tree. We're going to get some new stuff here that might help us out with this. But first, okay. The RTG may come in handy, but we don't have enough science to get to it just yet. By RTG, I mean the radio isotope thermoelectric generator. It's basically a nuke. And it provides power when the sun cannot. But we're not going to get that just yet. We're not going to get the larger probe core next either. Don't need the ion propulsion just yet either. Don't need any of that. Don't need any of this. Nothing for the space planes just yet. Don't need any of that. Would be nice to have that new docking port though, to be able to start adapting all of our KSS's to have that docking port for the large command pod. Don't really need the nuclear engine just yet either, but doesn't really look like we need any of this stuff really, not yet at least. But we can begin grabbing some of what we don't have just to catch ourselves up. Let's go ahead and knock out some of these smaller tier tech upgrades. That leaves us with 600. We'll go ahead and grab this, and we'll grab the nukes, the nerve engines. These only require liquid fuel. It's quite nice. They burn very efficiently for long duration burn times. It's good for like going to Moho or Elu, even the Joule system. You don't really need it for any of the other systems, which are Eve, Duna, or Drez. You can get to those, or even Joule without those, but they are particularly useful for the farthest planet out, Elu, and the closest planet to Kerbal, the star, which is Moho. But that knocks out our remaining science for now. We're gonna get quite a bit in the next episode with what we're about to build before we close out this episode after quick saving real fast. We did get some new parts, so we may want to go ahead and check our contracts one more time. Okay, let's go to the VAB and begin building this real quick to have it ready for the next episode, which we will do after a quick break after we're done here. So we are building a probe that is going to splash down into the ocean of Eve. But since we're able to launch from the Mun, we're not only going to build one probe to splash down on Eve, we're going to build two probes to take to Eve. One to land in the oceans, and one to land on land, hopefully. And we're going to stack those up and build our launch vehicle to get those there. Let's start off by grabbing our new remote guidance unit, using it for the second time now. Set it to heaviest part. And this one is going to be the one that will land on the surface of Eve. So let's get everything we need for it. We now have the Z1K rechargeable battery bank, which we can line up there. It's quite nice, instead of having to put those battery packs into it. Okay, so that takes care of our energy storage. Let's get some reaction control for that as well. We'll put that on top. Set it to heaviest part. And we'll grab our parachute, the Mark 16 XL. We'll put that at the top. Set it to grandparent part. And we'll grab the drogue chutes. And we'll put that, move it over 1, 2, 3 spaces. Radial 4, we'll put those there. Auto strut that to grandparent part. And now Eve, where it has such a thick atmosphere, it will not require nearly as many parachutes. Even that many should be fine for this, but we'll find out. Let's also put some lights on this thing so we can see what's happening. Hopefully they don't burn up upon entry, but we'll find out. Let's put those, radial 4 should be okay. We'll keep the lighting regular, since it's not going to be in space. We'll keep it nice regular lighting so we can see a little better once we land. This is the one that's landing on land, by the way, so just in case, let's double up on these drogue chutes. Go back to our place tool. We'll copy the drogue chute, try to put it in line with that one. Radial 4, copy it again, move over to the other side. Okay, now that should be fine. Now we need to worry about the communications. In fact, let's get rid of this and get rid of these in the middle. Let's grab the larger ones. Try to put these up as high as possible. Say about there. Auto strut those to grandparent part. These radials should be as well. Good. Let's move that in one space. Let's make sure those are not going to get in the way of each other when deploying. Looking good. Now instead of putting that parachute on the top, we're going to put a dish on top. I'm going to put one of the larger dishes on. And it will be protected as we go into the atmosphere. You will see how here in a moment. We just need to now go to the electrical menu again. We will grab the 1x6 photovoltaic panels. Set them here at radial 4, just in case anything happens. Set those to grandparent parts, and then we'll grab the onboard panels and find a place for those as well. So we will put it radial 4 next to the panels there, and radial 4 next to the panels on this side. That should be fine. Should not have saved. Should not have saved. Let's open craft and go down to the untitled vehicle that we just saved. Delete that. We're going to make this our first in our E series. It's going to be a Eve probe -1, and we'll save it. And I need to make going off before those main larger 4 radial parachutes. Now for the fun part. We need to put the landing gear on still. Let's grab these LT1s. The landing gear is going to have to be a little stronger. We'll put those here. The reason why it's going to have to be a little stronger is it may weigh 2.3 tons now, but once it gets to Eve, it's going to weigh quite a bit more. Make sure to retract those and deploy shielded, and that should be good for our Eve lander. We just need to also make sure to put a T12 decoupler down here. Set that to grandparent part, and then we'll put that decoupler down here to get rid of the parachutes on blah 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 stage. Let's save that. Now I want to make sure that that is still safe. So to do that, I'm going to take a fuel tank and put it on this. Let's get one of these real small ones, real cheap for a test. Put that on there, grandparent part. Okay, so it's 2.9 tons. Let's go to our engines. And in atmosphere, it's got to be able to push 29 or more kilonewtons of thrust. Let's see what we have. I can do that. It's relatively cheap, but nothing too fancy since we are just testing. Okay, a couple of these, maybe 3 of these, should do the trick. We'll put those about here. We'll do radial 2. It should still be able to do the job. Set those to root part. Put it in its own stage. That'll help assist the landing. Let's save it. Now, just to give you a preview of what's to come after we test this, we're going to be taking this adapter, like so, putting it down there, auto strutting it to grandparent part. We're going to be putting a T25 decoupler, putting it here, auto strutting that to grandparent part, and then going to our heat shields and breaking out this new bad boy, the 10-meter heat shield that is deployable, which will look like this when it's inflated. And then once the parachutes are deployed and Eve's atmosphere, we are going to decouple that. And when we decouple it, we'll have this going on, which we're also going to have to make sure to have a decoupler under here to decouple this, and then use the remaining stage here to land this probe on dirt on Eve. But for now, let's get rid of this and test this out. Then we're going to have to build the one that's going to go into the ocean. Let's go ahead and launch it from the launch pad. We'll extend this out until we are done creating this vessel. That way we can just go straight to launching it from the MUN as soon as we pick up in the next episode. So we may be going for another 20 minutes tops. Shouldn't take too much longer to build this though. After we test this, we'll know what we're going to do for the one that's landing in the ocean, and then it's only a matter of building the launch vessel and a transfer vessel. So once this is loaded up, we'll test this real fast. Let's time warp to the daytime so we can see our test. Let's deploy the landing gear. Check that out. See just how much it bounces. Not too bad, still plenty from the surface. It's going to be about half as high on the ground on Eve though, because it has nearly twice the gravity. Alright, now let's launch this thing. Nice and slow at first until it burns some of that fuel. Hopefully we can reach a nice high altitude and decouple that stage, deploy the chutes, and land this thing and test that out. I'm not going to decouple that over top of this. There's always the chance it might cause some damage. Again, we're testing this one over land, so we want to make sure that we're going to be landing on land. We also need to put some science on it once we're done. That's not going to add a whole lot of weight. Now it's time to stage here shortly. Alright, and then we will deploy the landing gear, whatever the drogue chutes, let those open. And that brings us down to 14 meters per second, which almost should be enough to land it on Eve, in all honesty, but again, it's going to weigh more on Eve, which is why we have those four, which will bring this down to a very nice 3.6 meters per second. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and warp down, make sure that our center of mass is going to be okay for this landing. We don't want it to tip over. If anything, let's stay locked to retrograde. Plenty of reaction control to be able to do that too. So we need to make sure to not deactivate our our SES. Once we're close to the surface, let's deactivate the warp and let it land nice and smooth. Fantastic. Alright. So let's revert this back to the vehicle assembly. It is ready to land on Eve's surface. Now we just need to basically do the same thing for the oceanic probe. We originally had intended to put on this. Let's get that T12 decoupler out. Groovy. Alright, let's set that to grandparent part. Make sure that is as well as this the root. Looking good. That decoupler will go off with those engines. Now we just need to get that structural part, that adapter, and place it under that and set it to grandparent part. I'm going to set it to orange so it looks a little prettier. We're going to auto strut that too, and we need to remember to put our science on this as well. Let's try to strut this up as good as possible. We'll place it about here so it doesn't interfere with our solar panels. That's looking good. Alright, let's save our progress. Let's go down on our science now. And how much power does that have? 1,000? You know what? Let's add a little more so we can transmit more without having to risk losing power. Let's put radial 2 on these Bateman batteries and move those into it. In fact, we need to raise it up to about there before we move it in. That way it's not going to interfere with this decoupling stage. So let's go back to our place tool and grab that decoupler and make sure that's not interfering with it. Okay, so we need to grab those batteries, place that back in there, zoom back in, raise back up, and grab those batteries. And we need to find a better root part to place those on. We'll place that, try to place that in between that light and the solar panel if we can. If not, we'll find somewhere to put it. You know, I guess we'll just have to... it's getting tricky. Okay, let's grab the solar panels, then grab these, set those to radial 2, and then move those into it. Could have just added another one of those new batteries, but that's okay. We'll just place this back on, radial 4. Now we're looking mighty fine. Let's save that again. Okay, we should still be good. Okay, we are. Let's break out that new heat shield, place it there, make sure it's set to radial 1, set to grandparent auto strut. Now you could stage it to jettison it, but I don't trust that. I really don't. So I just set a decoupler there instead. Alright, now we just need to break out a TD25 decoupler for that heat shield. Put that under there. And then it'll be time to create the oceanic probe. See, that'll go off, then that'll go off. With that, we need to make sure that these drogue chutes are going off about here. And then these are going off after those. Once those are deployed, we can kick that heat shield. It's going to be a little dangerous though. Hopefully we don't destroy our probe. Anyways, let's go back to our structural parts and grab another one of those larger ones and place it below there. Auto strut that to grandparent part. We still need to put the science on this, don't we? Keep forgetting, don't I? Okay, let's you know what? Let's get in there. Let's get rid of those batteries. We're just going to add another one of the new battery packs. It's going to get us more battery power anyways. Let's go down to our battery, grab that, place it here, and we'll put this back on top of that. And we will try to put the science and radial 4 configuration around that by placing this here first. Then we'll go to our seismometer, placing it there. I think once we land, we should be able to use the gravioli detector. I'm not 100% sure though, but we'll place one on there. And then we'll finish it off with the barometric pressure reader right here. Then we'll grab our mystery goo, placing it here at radial 2, so we can get one as we are landing. And then once we land, let's also use the move tool to move that mystery goo in a couple spots, make sure we can still highlight it. Very good. That's all we're going to need for now on this one. In fact, I'm also going to move this in one space because I don't like it popping out that much. So that should be good. Now it's time to do the oceanic probe. Let's grab our probe core, place it there. In fact, actually, I'm kind of messing up here, ain't I? Aren't I? Let's get a TD12 decoupler, place it there. And so we don't risk any damage to the probe core, we will put an RC, or Advanced Inline Stabilizer Reaction Control Wheel there and set it to heavy. And then we will place a battery pack there on top of the probe core, set the probe core to heaviest part, set that battery pack or bank to grandparent, then we'll put another one of those under it and set it to grandparent part. And then we're basically copying the other vessel by, let's see if we can find something to grab onto to make this an easy copy. Oh yeah, there's a battery pack we can grab. We'll just copy that, get rid of this one, and then place it there. Only difference is we're going to be getting rid of that landing gear, like so, and then grabbing our struts again, setting our radial to 8, and placing it up as high as we can get it, about there. And we're going to do the same thing again twice to make sure this is very secure. Okay, so that's not going to work. We have that extended menu open. We have to close that before it'll let us do that. As long as that's open, you can't rotate. I don't like that. It should just automatically close once you place the tool. That would be nice to see in a future update. Anyways, let's grab one more set of these struts, radial 8, to fill in our gaps. And that should be nice and secure after we place it. It looks like we're missing some things still. Looks like we're missing some power and some parachutes and some science and some communication relays. Let's grab those. Let's start with the relays. Can't use the larger one. We're going to use the RA2s. That'll save us a little bit of space. We're going to put these down here. Let's move it over 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. We'll set it to radial 2. We'll radial to another 2 about here in the center, and one last set of radial 2s about as far over as the last ones were. So 1, 2 from there. And then we just need to set every one of those to grandparent. After we do the first 3 sets of radial 2, they should all 6 be set to grandparent part. So that takes care of our communications. We might need to move those up a little higher so they don't get burnt up by those engines. We'll put them there, and then we'll move them in until we see it start to dip in too far. Move it back 1. Let's move those up again to where it's even with that one, and move them in. So that's 2 down, 1 to go. Let's move that up. Move it in. Okay, so that takes care of all of our communication abilities, and it should decouple properly. Looking good. Hopefully it decouples properly, we'll find out. Let's get our science on here though. We'll take the temperature, thermometer, the thermostat, we'll put that there. We'll put this over here. We'll put our gravimetric reader on this side. And we'll top it off with our barometric pressure reader over here. After we place that, we'll break out the mystery goo again, like we did on the other one. And we'll radial to that here. Auto strut that to grandparent part. That's all the science we need, all the communication. We need to get some power on this thing, so let's grab our 1x6 photovoltaic panel. We'll put that about here. No, we won't. We'll go 1, 2, 3 over, and radial 4 that there. That should be better. Make sure to set that to grandparent part. Very good. Looking good. We can also make sure to go ahead and move that mystery goo in a couple spaces. We'll still be able to grab a hold of it, so that's fine. These will still look just fine once they're deployed. Now we just need to put some parachutes on this thing. We had how many up here? 2x2 radial 4 drogues, and then 1 set of radial 4 the larger ones. So let's get these drogues. We will 2x2 them here and on the opposite side, if possible. I guess we'll have to place them a little higher. That is interfering with our mystery goo though. That's not very good, is it? Well, we're not going to have the landing gear. These relays are going to weigh less. once we kick that fuel stage, it should be fine. You know what? We'll just go with that, and then we'll put that in line with those radial chutes, radial 2. Set all these to grandparent. We are going to test these as well. There'll be one last test before we build the launch and transfer stages. Hopefully cutting the episode off at about an hour and a half. Gotta make sure that that's not going to interfere with our science, though. It's looking kind of shady there. Oh yeah, we do need to move that in one space, so that might help. There we go. Now, hopefully those will still deploy, and we can still get a hold of the science. That's good. I think it'll be okay. We just need to check our staging. And then get rid of this. Don't move it up into it, we need to get rid of it. Alright. Let's grab that, get rid of it. Get rid of it. There we go. Alright, that should be good. Let's save. What was I about to... Oh yeah, we need to check our staging. Okay. So the first thing that's going to happen is this is going to go off. So let's take that and move it down here to the bottom. And then after that we're going to be deploying... Actually no, we need to separate these from each other, so then this decoupler will need to go off. So we'll put that there. So once those two are separated from one another, they're going to be inflating those heat shields, and after they deflate the heat shields, we'll need to use this stage. So let's start a new stage down here and grab that. Bring it down here, as well as its engines. And we'll set a new stage here to do the same for the other one. Since they will be separated, it will automatically correct its staging. I believe those are already together, aren't they? Okay. Well, at least now we know where we need to put that. We'll just take it, put it here next to that new empty stage that we created, and get rid of the empty stage. Now, we need to make sure that the parachutes are going off before we decouple those larger shields, and that's where these two stages are. Let's check where those drogue chutes are. Okay, there's the larger chutes, and there are the drogue chutes together there. So let's take these, place those below that stage, and take that larger set of two radial chutes and put those there. And we'll do the same thing for this one. Put those there and put these above those. Now the engines aren't only there just to control the landing in case we're coming in a little wonky, but it's also to help us pull away from those heat shields whenever we decouple from those, because it can get a little dangerous at times. So we're going to have those going off, that's good. Okay, same thing up here. We have this as well as that to separate from... Okay, so that's actually got to go up down here. Let's place it about there. So that'll go off, then that'll go off to separate the oceanic probe from the landing probe, surface probe I mean, which it can then get rid of that once it's safe to, and then deploy its heat shield. Very good. Now, what are those last two? That's a curious question. Where are those? Okay. So, we'll just separate those like so. That's to get rid of our fuel tanks and our engines, that's right. Okay. Now those are staged properly. Let's save. This will be our final test. Once we know this works, we'll just have to build the transfer vessel. So these weigh 11.19 tons. Okay. A swivel should be able to move those. We'll just take this tank. Way too small. Okay. We'll just take this tank then. Still way too small. Well, that'll be. Alright then. The smallest Rockomax tank then, since it wants to be so particular. Let's take that, put that here. Okay, now it's not going to be a swivel. Let's grab, you know what, I think a swivel might still do the trick. We'll find out. 167, you say? Let's put the swivel on there. Yikes, never mind. Let's grab the Reliant. It can push 205 in atmosphere, so it'll be nice for our little test here. Set the root part, set that to grandparent, make sure this decoupler is as well. Alright, that goes off, that decouples, and then we're in business. In fact, we need a little bit better of a test than this. These need to be pretty high up. So, we're going to launch it from the MUN into Kerbin's atmosphere and test them that way. Let's grab a Rocket Max Jumbo. After we put some reaction control on this, set that to heaviest part, and let's put that jumbo on, and we'll grab our probe core if we can. It's going to be a little hard to get to. Where are you at, probe core? Ugh, made it difficult for ourselves by putting it in there like that, but there it is. Radio 1, grab the probe core, zoom out, let's try to raise this up, like so. Oh no, I grabbed a part that I did not need to grab. Okay, it's an easy fix. Okay, now, let's put an engine on the bottom of this so we can finish testing all this nonsense. Let's put the skipper on. What do you say, what do you say? Alright, radio 1, set it to root, make sure it goes off, then the decoupler there. Okay, good. Let's save that. And let's put some launch stabilizers on it. You know we're gonna have to clear that from the launch pad once we're done. In fact, it's not gonna be that big a deal. Let's put our center of mass overlay on, set that to radial 2, just so we have less to deal with. It should be fine, it's just a test anyways. Let's put that there, save the game, or save the craft. Choose a launch site, go down to the MUN launch site. Let's try to wrap this up. If this is a successful test, we will... I still want to just stick to finishing up this vessel before the episode is over, because I want to just be prepared to launch as soon as we start the next episode. This is going to be a bit of an extensive test. I'm not going to describe a whole lot of it, so we can wrap through it pretty quickly. I'll describe what we're doing when we're actually doing it around Eve, but you'll be able to see what we're doing as we're doing it here in the test around Kerbin. Alright. Should be plenty of Delta V to do this test. I'm really worried about power because that engine is going to keep us powered, but I am going to activate at least one solar panel. Let's get out here and check out our apoapsis. It's going to be moving fairly quickly due to the thrust to weight ratio. Once that's at about 20,000, I'm going to cut that off, circularize, and begin our Kerbin return trajectory burn. Poet didn't know it every episode. Jesus, I need to stop that. Okay. Once it hits 500,000, time warp over to the apoapsis. They can get ready to go prograde. 2, 1, 0, cut. Plenty of control in a vacuum, thanks to those reaction wheels on the probes, as well as that one on the engine. We need to keep that in mind. Once we are here... Where's Kerbin? Oh, well, that worked out perfectly. Let's just zoom out, activate that, and do our burn. Because of the placement of our vessel, we should not have much of a hard time just burning straight back to Kerbin from here. wasting some of the fuel that we're testing with here, but that's okay. It's cheap. We can afford it. And let's bring it down to about 100,000. And then let's warp over. And get ready to burn retro once we arrive at that mark. And prepare to make orbit. Because we're not just going to come in at whatever speed from the Mun. We're going to be in orbit. And we're going to be dropping these things from orbit. Yeah, it might be better to go ahead and warp over to that Variaps first. Alright, now, I should have enough Delta V to pull this off still. Yeah, we have half a tank, we're good. Only need about 1,000 Delta V to do this anyways. Oh yeah, if you've been digging the tunes, this is a set that I did, gosh, maybe back in 2014 at a festival called Eternus. It was an electronic music festival. I played a trance set there. It was my In Trance We Trust episode 350 live. It's pretty cool. Anyways, we're here for Kerbal. Maybe some for the tune, some for the Kerbal, both. But let's get the Kerbal. That's the more important thing right now. Let's warp over here so we can see what's happening when we do this. Yeah, since I have the time to do it right now anyway, since we're time warping. Linked in the description for every episode is my Soundcloud. I do upload all my sets, and I still make sets, occasionally remixes and originals, but I really don't do that stuff a whole lot anymore. If you want to check it out, there you go. But we're all about the Kerbal here on YouTube. Occasionally, if I make a remix of something I like, I do put it up here on YouTube, like the recent Closey remix I did. But now it's time to get back into full focus. Alright, now to test these, let's close the solar panel here and get rid of that. And then we need to stage again, but first we will inflate this heat shield. Then we will stage. Let that bounce into that. Let's move this to where we can stage that. Then we will inflate its heat shield as it moves away from that. Hopefully that stage doesn't come bouncing and crashing back into us. I'm kind of terrified now, to be honest. So I'm also going to go ahead and set these parachutes to deploy while taking direct control of this one instead. Setting its to do the same as well. It's time warp. Kind of worried about this. We'll have to make sure to do this properly at Eve, so we can make sure to keep an eye on both of these while they are doing their thing. In fact, we can decouple the top one first, keeping the fuel tank attached to this bottom one, and let it drop down first to the surface of the ocean. I guess the top one is the surface one, so down to the surface for that one. And then we'll come back around for a second pass letting this one drop down into the ocean, and that'll do just fine. Okay, so let's continue our test here. Trying not to extend this into like a 2-hour episode, but we're looking good. Alright, starting to feel the burn a little bit now. That one's definitely feeling the burn and moving away a lot faster. But they don't move too far from one another though. I'm kind of concerned about that. That's why we're going to do that separately once we get to Eve. It's time warp. Going to be feeling way more of a burn on Eve though. And I'm not sure. This is the oceanic one. It's going to land first probably. I don't know. It weighs less. We already tested the other one anyways, but just want to make sure to test this one. It'll be fine. Just waiting on those parachutes to deploy now. Okay. Now we just need to wait till they fully deploy before, like both of them, both sets of chutes need to fully deploy before we even think about getting rid of that heat shield. Because it can get pretty nasty trying to do that sometimes. Can we even swap to the other? Oh, sweet. Okay. Very cool. Okay, it's at 7,222. This one, much lower. Okay. Groovy. That's perfect. So, we'll let these parachutes deploy. We'll swap back to the other one. Nothing got hurt in the making of this. Alright, there goes the drogues. We're just waiting. Okay, the drogues deployed on the other one, you can tell, because it kind of jumped down and then jumped back up. Alright, those are fully deployed. We'll wait for the other ones to fully deploy on that one. Let's make sure they're going to, though. Time warp ahead until they do. Alright, now it's time to test out this. Very good. We'll let that hit the ground. Hopefully it will destroy itself so we don't land on it. It definitely will on Eve though, due to the gravity. It's a good surface speed for this to splash down into the ocean with. It's controllable. We have those engines just in case. Once that's done doing its thing and explodes and gives us control of the game back. Come on now. Let's swap to this one. Same thing, make sure it works. Very good. Deploy the landing gear, keeping the SES locked, or else. Oh well, that's not too bad. Not too bad at all. Okay. All right, let's make sure the same thing happens with the other vessel though. Saw you tipping. Let's deactivate the SAS on it. It doesn't really matter. It's splashing into the ocean, but let's go ahead and time warp. There goes the heat shield over there, about to go kaboo. There goes kaboo. 876543. Alright, let's activate the engines. That's it. SAS on. Nice, splashdown. Let's check the other one. Let's warp you on down. Much slower descent for that surface meshing, or landing. 47, 46, 45, 44. Taking forever. Okay. You know what? I'm just gonna do it. Goodbye. Now it's going even slower. What was I thinking? It should be fine though. We've already tested this one. It's not landing on water. It's landing at 3.7 meters per second, some maybe 3.6. Much slower. More neat though. It's gonna be kind of terrifyingly slow. Okay, so we're good. Let's go to our tracking station, recover those, and we'll build the rest of the vessel and call it quits. And try to get in 1, maybe 2 more episodes. It might take 2 episodes just for this mission. But we're gonna land both these probes on Eve, fulfilling a Eve landing and splashdown contract. We'll do the splashdown first, which doesn't add up because the landing gear is on the one on the top. Huh. Guess we're gonna have to swap those. Alright, let's go down here and get rid of these. Recover that, and recover the other one. And then we'll terminate the other ones, unfortunately. Oh yeah, we landed them. We can recover those. Never mind. Hey, we got a little bit of science from that. We get a little science from this one too. Hey, alright. Okay, now let's go back to our Space Center, and we'll swap the probes around so we can do the splashdown first, since that's our contract. And then the landing after that. In fact, I really don't think it matters, because it might not give us the landing contract after anyways, but we'll find out. Let's go back to our VAB. Just got a message, but I'm afraid to check it because it might cut my stream, so I'll check that after I'm done. Alright, VAB, sometime today. We're waiting. Okay. Now, to swap these, how am I going to do this? Let's get rid of this. Go up here, take a look at what we're looking at. Okay, we can take this off, move it, and then try to find a spot where we can grab that. Oh no, before we do though, let's put that back on there. Let's grab this, I would suppose. Yes, okay, we'll grab that. Oh geez. Decoupler. There it is, let's grab that. Let's see what we're looking for. Okay, good. Very good. Alright, now let's grab that reaction control wheel and separate that. Now we just need to grab the battery pack under this probe somehow. Is that it? It's the remote guidance unit. Okay, there's the battery pack. Let's grab that. And take you down here. And we'll grab this battery pack and put it on this one instead. Looking kind of ugly, isn't it? Thanks to the power. You know what? I guess that just means we're going to have to grab the battery pack again and try to find a better way to place this. Let's grab it. How to do this? I guess could just see, we're gonna need all those relays and such for that. I don't know. I really don't know. So we can separate them together. I think I have a way to do this. Let's reattach this. Put it here where it was. And let's take these engines. No, very simple solution. Okay, we'll just take this off. We'll put one of these small Rockomax tanks on the bottom. One of the tanks. We'll put a small Rockomax tank on the bottom. Set that to grandparent port. It should be enough RCS still though. Let's put this here. We'll put another decoupler under that. TD25. Okay, so for those playing the home game, all we're changing I'll even put it back together real fast to show you. Let's take that and place this back up here on that. Everything's the same, honestly. We just need to put this back here. The only difference now is that we just added that Rocco Max tank and a decoupler. Because we can set this stage to deorbit itself and this stage to deorbit itself by adding a Rocco Max tank there and a Poodle. Should be enough. Let's check our weight. Yeah, it's 9.9 tons. A Poodle should be enough. So we'll put the Poodle there to set this to deorbit, and that'll be the surface lander. And this, once it decouples those, it's already going to be on its way, but even if it's not, we'll have the tank here for its deorbit. That's fantastic. Okay, so let's take the Poodle, put it on the bottom. Where'd you go, Poodle? Looking for you. Where'd you go? Where the heck is my Poodle? Probably looking right at it. Yep, there we go. There's the Poodle. Set that to root. Set this to grandparent port. Make sure that one's set to grandparent. Good. And we'll just put that back. That's it. That's all we had to do to fix that. Fantastic. Okay. Let's save the craft. Now we just need to check that staging one more time before we carry on. That'll go first. Then it'll separate the vessels. Separate that. But we do need to activate the Poodle at that point as well. And the Poodle is right there. So let's grab it and put it down here. We don't want those two going off at the same time now, do we? So let's separate those. And the rest should be good. Poof, 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 poof. Okay. Something's wrong here. We can also check the staging once we decouple them anyways, but something is not right here. We'll just check the staging in space. That'll be okay. We'll do it live. Let's save it. Now it's time to build that transfer vessel. Before we can do that, we need to raise this up. Is that the entire vessel? I believe it is. Okay. Let's raise it up a little higher. That should be fine. Now, all of this together only weighs 17 tons. That's incredible. It's pretty expensive for only 17 tons, but it's going to be worth it. Let's put the reaction control wheel down here, and we're going to make this set to root, or heaviest, on the strutting. We're going to make this a Wolfhound stage. Let's grab a Rocco Max 200-32. That's too much. Okay, so we'll grab the next smallest, the 16, and then we'll also take one of these 8s and attach it under there. Set both those to grandparent part. And then we'll stick the Wolfhound under there, wherever the Wolfhound is. They like to hide from me right now for some reason. I don't like it. Alright, auto strut to root. Now, in our last episode, or was that this episode? I can't remember. It didn't take too much to get there and make orbit, did it? Not really. Let's take a TD-25, put it under there, and we'll build this up to close to 62 tons with a skipper engine. But we also do need to make sure to put another reaction control wheel on this stage. Set that to heaviest part. Make sure that that's grandparent. Make sure the engine's root there. Good. Make sure that this tank is placed and set to grandparent part. Where'd the mouse go? There you are. And I think we can add a little more fuel here. Let's go back to our fuel. Jeez, the lag. It's only 129 parts, for Christ's sake. Okay, go down here to the Rocco Max series. You know what? I'm going to make it easy on myself. I'm just going to copy that, move it down here, grab this, remove it. Okay, so that's too much for that stage. Let's put that poodle on now. See what it puts us at with that tank on. That's stretching it. That's pushing our luck a little bit, and the gravity around Eve is not friendly. But you know what? We'll keep it. As long as it's under 65 tons, it'll have enough to be able to work in space. So we'll take it. Let's check our staging though. Make sure that's going off. Decoupling into the Wolfhound. And then that decouples. And then this will decouple after that one. Okay, good. The rest we can fix when we need to, before taking these things down to the surface. Alright, so that's not itself is not going to be enough to make it to Eve and make orbit. We're going to build it down to the Rhino stage. So the next stage, let's just copy this. We're just going to replace the engine and add another reaction control wheel. Let's copy this, place it under it, and then set the one on top to root. The one that we copied will already be set to heaviest, so we don't have to worry about that. How much does that weigh? It's going to weigh a little more because of the engine we're sticking on it, but it'll be fine. Okay, let's get rid of that and put the jumbo on instead. Okay, once we delete that, go to the fuel tanks, set the mass to the heaviest at the top, and grab that Rocket Max Jumbo. Then we'll stick the set that to grandparent part first, and then we will stick the, what is it, the 16? Yep, we'll put the 16 there, and then auto strut it to grandparent. Take this tiny one, put it under there for maximum fuel efficiency, since we are launching in a vacuum. Make sure it's set to grandparent, and we'll take the mainsail and put it on the bottom. And now it's going to get a little hairy. We are going to put the Rhino stage under there. Let's get that TD25 decoupler out. Come on. Auto strut to grandparent part. We'll get the reaction control. We'll put one out. Put it to root part. Copy it once. Copy it one more time. And then set that third one to heaviest and copy it once. And that'll be enough on our reaction control system. Oh, alright, that's RCS, isn't it? This is reaction control wheel, not RCS. There we go. Let's save our progress. Okay. Now we just need to get that fuel tank adapter from the 2 series to the 3 series. Set it to grandparent part and grab, where did it go? There we go, the 7200 tank, I believe. And just to be safe, I'm going to take one of these 16 series tanks, placing it under here, and then setting it to grandparent, and then placing this here. Try to maximize our fuel efficiency for this stage. Looks like it's going to too, because after we put this Rhino engine on, what's it going to weigh? It's going to be close to 2,000, so it's not going to have too much thrust to weight compared to the last one, but it'll still have plenty of fuel, and the more that fuel it burns, the faster it's going to get. Let's go ahead and regroup our staging, making sure these decouplers are going off with their engines. Once we do that and get control of our mouse back from the lag here, let's, wow, okay, so that center of mass is much higher than expected. We're going to use 4 of these again. We'll just put it here, radial 4. We'll have to lower it down again, but we'll do that here in a moment because it's going to be a pain. Let's break out our struts. This should be the last thing that we need to do. We'll grab the struts, radial 8, And if anything, last time indicated we can't trust it from placing it there, so we'll place it starting here. And place it up as high as we can get it, close to the center on that tank as possible. Wow, it's still not cooperating. Well then, foo foo fa-choo poopy poo. We'll place it from here. Let's place it, go up. Chugga 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 choo choo, up to that. And then we'll place it. Okay, now they should place fine where they're not all sideways looking. Very good. Okay, let's grab 2 more sets of 8. Strut this up and be on our way. Come on now. Come on now. You ain't gotta be so laggy. It's only 159 parts. Didn't have this much lag on 3,000 parts almost. With my Death Star, which can also be found down in the popular ships created playlist if you would like to take a look at those. Anyways, let's place those. Get this last set of struts set so we can end this. I can take a break and we'll do another episode taking these and landing them on Eve, hopefully all in one episode. Since this is an extended episode, it's pretty much an episode on top of an episode. So that makes technically, what, 3 episodes today, even though it's only 2. Oh my god, why you gotta be so complicated, Avril Lavigne? Oh, no wonder it wasn't set to Radio friggin' 8. Okay, let's grab that. Radio 8, come on, Laggy McLaggerton. Change symmetry 10 years later. Can we stop with the nonsense? Okay, there we go. I'm gonna have to do the other one again, too. Oh, come on, brother. There we go. Let's grab the other ones. We just need to check that first stage and we'll be good. Go down here sometime today. Struts, brother. Do you have struts, brother? Go down further. There we go. Alright, let's go back up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. Boots and cats and boots and cats. Alright, we're done. Alright, place those. Jesus Christ, are you serious? Struts. Place. It's not that hard. Jeez. And I'm about to have a conniption fit. Where are they going this time? You're supposed to stay where you were. Come on. Oh my god. Oh, of course you're gonna try to trick me with that Radio 4 again. Not today, Satan. Okay. Go back up. One more time. Please, for the love of God, one last time. Why are you over there? You're supposed to be over here. Okay. Now. There we go. I think we're done. Swear to God. Okay. Now we just need to move it down and make sure that that first stage is set properly. Zoom in, try to find this. Why'd it move over? Get back over. Okay, there we go. Let's try to find that probe core, if possible. Come on. Show yourself. You liquor. Come on. Oh, this is such a pain. A bit of a complicated build. I'm apologizing for that. You can send them one at a time if you want. The same vessel will still be able to do that. Come on now, it's only 175 friggin' parts. The next thing you know, it's gonna crash on me. Oh, fancy that. There it is. Stop with the lag. Come on. You can see the little truck trying to move on the right side of the screen towards the bottom. It's not moving. It's not moving. Oh, there we go. Radio 1. Very good. Can we get some movement here? Okay, good so far. Try to center it on the screen. Where the heck is the rhino? Okay, now we can see ourselves a little bit. Hopefully if I place it there, we'll be done. As soon as it's done, glitching out, lagging around, I'll check. Once the kerbals are moving without any interference on the ground, you know it's good. Okay, that's close enough. We'll take it. Just put this under here. Everything else should be fine. I think it'll be okay. If it'll ever stop with the VAB lag. Once we get out to the launch pad, it'll be fine. But no, not in the VAB. Alright, we're done. We're done. Let's save the craft just in case one more time. Go back to the Space Center. And the only way to make that rhyme is to say rhyme. But didn't know it. Stop with that. 1 minute, almost 2 minutes past 2 hours. That is 2 episodes, extended episode. I'm going to cut it off here now that we are ready to launch. Technically, we just have to go to the tracking station, set up our transfer window in the next episode, and then launch it. And we're going to have a good time in that one. And my game just crashed, if you can still